beautiful seekers, and welcome to this space and time. My name is Gabriel Lugo, and here I talk from self to self. In the last episode, I began the channeling from 2019, December 14, from LTC Research, in the topic of narcissism. A word that is thrown around a lot these days and describes a specific behavior that some people have and that can be concerning for a lot of the sensitive people, which is the vast majority, of course, who have a perspective on people that we should be nice, we should all be caring and loving and so on. So usually us as society, we would like to improve things. We would like to bring more love to this planet, and that there is a certain metaphysic reality to this, because as we know it, the planet is evolving into a higher consciousness of love and understanding. So from that perspective is that I want to continue this reading, because I think there is always room for healing in the sense of individual understanding of certain behaviors. What I mean is that if you think about it, we as investigators, researchers of reality, at least I did, and I think it's an important step into opening more your view of unity. We have come to pieces with negative beings. That's one of the things that I think was the most amazing part in terms of looking at the world and the universe, for that matter, from a dual perspective, in which there is evil that needs to be overcome for us to become something. And in the view of the law of one, certainly also the non-dual view, we realize that evil is not only okay, but it's necessary for this particular evolution that we're in. So what we call evil is simply the negative path of separation. That's okay. We need that path of separation, at least, again, for this particular experience as humans. So if we have come to terms with this necessity of separation to be, and we're talking about the most negative individuals in the world, narcissism, you see, is narcissism something that is beyond negativity, or is it something in between? This is the question that's going to be asked later on in this session. So as I get the introduction into this particular episode, just a refresher, the channeling is available in my YouTube channel. If you're listening to this from another platform, you have to go to the YouTube video or podcast, where you can go and check the channeling directly from LTC Research. And the previous episode was talking about the nature of narcissists, and we found out that they have a superiority complex in which they feel that they must be superior because they suffer from feeling inferior. So as a reaction, they begin to just exhibit this feeling of being better than you, which again is a childish point of view, as I discussed and read from Quell's own words. That is the childish perspective of the one who feels superior, because inside it's suffering. It doesn't feel good. It feels not complete. And so that is the inferiority that leads to superiority complex. Now this, of course, needs healing. So we talked about that and the possibility that they have for healing. Now I won't cover all the details because that's part of the last episode. So I'll go straight into what Austin asks, as Quo says, if there is any other question. And Austin says, yes, I have a follow-up to that. Like Aaron says, Aaron was the person who asked the question. As Aaron says, sometimes these narcissistic entities can do a lot of harm and damage to the people in their lives. Do you have any advice for somebody wishing to be of service to others, and how to handle a relationship with a narcissist? Some people have experiences of attempting to offer love and acceptance directly, but having that be taken advantage of completely, and more harm coming from that attempt to offer love. So, do you have any guidance on how to relate to such entities? This is actually a very good question for people wanting to handle situations with, say, family members who are suffering from this superiority complex, and also for people in relationships where they really love the person and they can see through the lies, the masks that they use, and they want to give love to them. Clearly, this is not for people who can't deal with people like this, and that's understandable. But for people who are in the process of dealing with narcissists, which really are the heroes of this particular experience of humanity, remember, this is not, narcissists are not strictly negative, so we'll get to that in a second. So Quo says, I am Quo and I'm aware of your query, my brother. The narcissistic relationship is one of great challenge for every soul involved with the narcissist. There are most usually pre-incarnative choices made with those entities who are members of the same family with the narcissist. These pre-incarnative choices have been made in order that support may be given in the most effective manner to the one expressing the narcissistic needs. Oftentimes, there is a kind of give and take or trading of opportunities within the grouping that has decided to utilize the narcissistic point of view in one of its members so that the remainder of the group may offer service of the kind which you have described. So a couple of things here. One is that we can see already that this has been planned for the people who are around a family member. They talk about family members here, they don't talk about relationship, but this can easily be extrapolated also for relationships, is that we sort of planned in our lives to have these people around to whatever degree that is necessary. It's hard to describe, of course, what kind of degree of relationship you have with them. It could be somebody who it's in your family but not directly in your intimate circle. Could be something different. Could be a moment in which you had to deal for a couple of months with somebody. It doesn't matter. The whole point is that we all sort of have the capacity of dealing with narcissistic behaviors, and it's an important part to know that we planned this. It's a plan of humanity to deal with this sort of behavior, especially at this point in our evolution. So Quo continues saying, this kind of service is that which attempts to give love and understanding when it is known that oftentimes the response will be a rejection of such, seeing such attempts at love and understanding as futile expressions of weakness. However, this challenge, which has been undertaken, as we said, most of the time by a group, is that which can propel the progress of each person within the group if there is an intensive effort made to communicate in a manner which is non-threatening to the narcissist. The simple expression of love and understanding must be translated then in the day-to-day behavior, and not just the communication that attempts to see the narcissistic entity as one which offers opportunity for growth amongst the entire assemblage of entities that are within the close approximation or daily round of activities for the narcissist. The attempt to communicate must be based in an attempt to aid the narcissist in grasping a wider point of view by asking questions that may offer such a point of view to be expanded. The questioning is hypothetical in that it asks, what if this or that might be true? Would you still have the same point of view? How do you feel about the situation when it redounds in difficulty for you? What do you feel is your role in relating to others? Seeing others may have some need to benefit from you and your interaction at a level which you would see as your heart. How do you see your heart? What role does your heart play in your life? How can you share your heart with me, with him, with her, with all? So these are the questions that Quo is suggesting that we ask the narcissist. Now again, of course, these are not the specific questions like you're going to grab the script and read them, ask them, but get the essence of them and apply to a specific situation in which you are. You may be able to contribute to the self-realization of the narcissist to begin to dig deep into its own perception of self, because that's where the healing takes place, within the self, not within the external view of the world. And again, it's in the last paragraph they express how much this can propel the progress of each within the group that is in relationship with the narcissist. This is the way in which we can aid others, and it's not just the narcissist, but everybody really. I mean, these are the same exact guidelines to help anybody who may have problems, who may have a view of themselves that is less than what is expected. And although clearly the difference is that the narcissist is a very aggressive person in terms of how it demonstrates its inferiority, the same inferiority is in other people who are much subtle, and they actually, instead of being aggressive or violent to others, they are violent and aggressive with themselves, which is, of course, seen from the person, from the individual, the family member or the relationship partner, as more compassionate towards the one that is attacking itself or himself or herself. You see, so it's the same situation, only that we're dealing with a more ego-sensitive shell from ourselves to the narcissist. I hope that makes sense, because this is the view of someone who wants to be, of course, inclusive of all people. And you can see through the shell of, say, the superiority complex of a narcissist and see the inferior person, not as a sort of mockery or, just feeling better than, or feeling that, oh, poor person, I pity you, but just to see the sensitivity of the person and see what can be done to help and aid this person. Again, I am not talking for the people who are not sensitive, or rather they are too sensitive to deal with narcissists. I know this is the case for a lot of people, and I understand that. I'm talking to the people who are not sensitive to it and that are able to deal with this in a manner that, of course, they're not involved emotionally and so on. But again, my point of view is just to expand the possibility of healing others. And for those who, again, are the heroes in this journey, is the possibility, of course, of navigating the narcissist with these type of questions, just going straight into the heart of themselves and ask them, how would you deal with the situation, and what do you feel is your role here, and why do you think it's important that we act this way? Just make them question everything. That's the way, and that's it. Of course, there's no straight advice to this, but the way to deal with it. But let's keep reading. In the next paragraph, they say, the questioning has as its objective the chance to promote a wider point of view within the narcissist. The narcissist then has the opportunity to be able to adopt a wider point of view that is seen as something that could benefit it. giving to the narcissist more of what it would truly desire if it is able to come into true contact with its own feelings and heart. Thus, each within the grouping that partakes in this process of questioning then has the opportunity of serving the narcissist in expanding its point of view, and the narcissist has the opportunity of being able to reach into its heart for the first time in its life experience, to discover a self that is its truer self. Let me repeat that. To discover a self there that is its truer self. I don't know why I had so much trouble reading that, but simply to discover a self that is truer than the self that it thought to be. You see, it's the invitation to continue to dig into the narcissist's heart, but not the person itself, but to guide the narcissist into navigating its own heart. And I'll repeat, this is not only let's say a possibility for the narcissist. This is a possibility for everybody to dig into their own hearts, and it's just the same navigation. I recognize the same navigation that is used to help people who are in trouble. The only difference, of course, is that generally people are always attacking themselves. They're suffering within themselves and not externalizing it, just like a narcissist would with a superiority complex. The last part of this answer is Quo saying, we realize that this is not an easy type of learning and process of relationship between those who know the narcissist and the narcissist. I don't know why they repeated that. Those who know the narcissist and the narcissist. Okay. It is one which holds great challenge, for being, as you say, injured in one way or another by such an interaction may be too great a challenge if all are not willing and able to expand their own desires to offer aid to one which seems to give nothing in return. So once again, this is just Quo's way of saying, we understand that not everybody is available to do this kind of work, but if they want, it's there. It's not easy, but the work is there. The way to be of service to them and to others it's available. So it really depends on the person. Of course, this needs somebody who has a sort of open heart for this type of activity. Doesn't mean that if you can deal with this, you don't have an open heart. No, it just means that some people need to clearly have an open heart to deal with this type of situation. And it's understandable that a lot of people can't. It's completely understandable. But I must mention, just as a completion, that of course, those who can't deal with the situation, in a way, are feeling catalyst for their own ego to see what is being affected here. And again, this is no judgment, it's just the truth. Why would we be affected by what somebody else says? I mean, their actions, they may be hurtful in other ways, but verbally, should we be that sensitive? I don't know. That's a good question. But speaking of good questions, Austin has another one and says, one more follow-up along those lines. You've been describing narcissism as generally part of the path of service to others, a positive individual who may benefit from the balancing it offers in the transformation that can unfold. Is it possible for such narcissism to also be part of the path of service to self individual? Or is what we see as narcissism maybe too obvious or blunt for service to self polarization? This is a great question because a lot of people think that narcissists, they're negative individuals and we have nothing in common, so why would I help them, right? And so what does Quo says? Quo replies, I am Quo and am aware of your query, my brother. It is easy to look upon the narcissistic entity and imagine that one is seeing a negatively oriented entity that is attempting to follow the service to self path. However, as you have observed, such behavior on the path of the narcissist is so, shall we say, diffuse and uncontrolled, that it is not likely that a truly negatively oriented entity would choose this type of means of expression of its desire to separate itself from all others about it and to control them for its own benefit. However, positively oriented entities who wish to offer themselves a great challenge within the third density illusion oftentimes program what you may see as the opposite of what one wishes to produce within the incarnation. This opposite programming, then, is followed as a means by which to realize the positive fruits of serving others after a long and difficult inner battle, shall we say, that requires that the narcissist be able to promote a greater and greater expression of its beingness in a manner which can be approached by those about it with the desire to accept what is given by the narcissist without taking it into the self as part of the self. In other words, refusing the narcissist's definition of the other self as being timid, weak, or futile. This offers to everyone within the grouping dealing with the narcissistic behavior a great challenge. So, really good question first to show that, as Austin actually surmised, then yes, it is kind of obvious for a narcissistic person to disguise himself as a service to self entity, because it's being too obvious that it's being aggressive and nobody would want to follow this person, and being manipulated by them it doesn't make sense. So here's just a sort of good example of what negativity is. Negativity is not really just anybody who does harm, because what is harm? Can you see when somebody's causing harm? Can you determine that? Are people being manipulated, being done harm? That's a good question. It's really an ideal form of looking at the world, because you may say, well, all these people who are being manipulated by the government and they don't know anything, they're being done some harm and they're being controlled this and that way. But are they really? I think that's a point of view from the person who feels free from it and wants to free others. We have learned over time that we don't free anybody. People free themselves. So, in the same way, when a narcissistic person tries to do harm to others by expressing themselves in a superior way and all of this, yes, sensitive people will be affected, but others are just going to see through the mask and the shell and smile inwardly and say, I wish you the best because I can see through you. So it is not a negative entity, you see, but it is easy to understand it or pick it up as something negative because they're being basically very nasty. And they refresh again the fact that it's an opportunity for positive beings to enact their positivity. And so it remains a possibility for the positive beings around it to, it's a great accomplishment to help somebody heal this narcissistic view of the world and all the damage that they're doing themselves, but they never express because that would be a sign of weakness. So to help them is to help greatly the whole humanity, actually. So again, that's why I call them heroes. People who deal with them are heroes. I don't know if I have the what do you call it? The guts to deal with that? Probably not. Maybe that's just not my service. But the last paragraph, they say, however, much progress is made in the third density illusion as a result of dealing with traumatic situations. These types of traumatic situations, then, carry a kind of weight within the total beingness that is like unto the diver who competes in the diving championship and chooses the difficult dive to attempt to win the meet or win the medal. I think it's funny that they say the medal. The difficult dive, then, when accomplished successfully, gives more points in the overall event. Thus, the narcissist is doing much the same as are those who participate with the narcissist within the incarnation. Oftentimes, the numbers of those so participating with the narcissist are few, for this is a very difficult type of pre-incarnative programming to undertake. So, yeah, in other words, it's the same thing. Much progress can be made in the third density illusion as the dealing with these traumatic situations of the narcissist, you see, because they are, like they say, a very, very heavy challenge where a lot is gambled, and not only for the entity itself, but also for other people who are around it. So much can be done, so many possibilities of, or potential of evolution for the creator to be healed in this way. Again, we have to remember that it is the creator experiencing everything, and healing anybody is healing the creator, which is just another way of saying allowing the creator to know itself through the most difficult paths. And so I think I mentioned Angulimala in the last episode, where the Buddha, in essence, helped enlighten this criminal who was the most feared and hated criminal around. And that's a great story. That's a great story for the creator to say, I went from being a terrible, despicable criminal to being enlightened. And beyond the shells of personality that we may draw on people, that's probably one of the most amazing things, you see. So everything is beautiful. Everything in nature is beautiful. So why should we look at humans and say, well, just not this person, not this behavior, please. Everything is a possibility. And again, I think it's like they said at the last time, or the last part of the paragraph, they say, oftentimes the numbers of those so participating with the narcissist are few. For this is a very difficult type of pre-incarnative programming to undertake. It is indeed, for the person and for the people around it. It's a beautiful challenge. It's a commendable endeavor, but it's definitely not for others. So if you're one of the heroes out there dealing with a narcissist in your life, then be strengthened by these words that what you're doing is one of the greatest and most difficult things to do with humans right now, because they are very hurt people. But rest in the assurance that they're not negative. They wouldn't be negatives. They wouldn't accomplish anything. They're hurt inside. They need healing. They need a lot of healing. And all we can do is love them and provide that catalyst for them to keep knowing themselves. And that's it. That's the best we can do. Not even hope. Why should we hope when we know that faith is really to know that the Creator lies within, and all we can do is nourish it? So, conclusions before I end the podcast on this specific topic. You see, just as a refresher, what we know of narcissists enlighten us to see that even the people that we think could be negatives, they really are just hurt people, that they have created shells around them to feel better about themselves because they're very traumatized inside. And so just like with anybody else, it really depends on the degree of service that we want to provide. There is a potential for releasing all of this hurt, this unpolarized creator that still lies in there, because the narcissist is not polarized in the negative way. This is a misconception that happens a lot when people start studying the law of one and they say, anybody who is hurtful or does things is a negative being. They're from Orion. No, you know what? it's hard to describe, or not to describe, but to spot somebody from Orion if they're really good, because they just show a facade that is stronger than anybody else. I mean, for people who have been in the positive path long enough, it's easy to see when people are not being genuine and they look pretty fake when they speak, and yet they have a lot of popularity and they have so many people in their control and so on. So that's just easy. But no, we're dealing with damaged people, and just like people with PTSD or any other trauma, these people are the same, only that they behave very toxic and aggressive with other people. But the possibility of healing is there. Once again, it is only commendable for those who are participating with the narcissists, and it's completely understandable not to be able to deal with it, but the possibility of healing the creator is there. So with that, I come to the end of this episode. That's all I got for narcissism in this particular channeling. I'm not sure if there are more, but I think this is the most important one. I thank you now for listening, for being part of this vibration of understanding, for density love, and all that jazz. And I appreciate you. I have nothing else to say, but I'll catch you on the next one.